Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rosefellow podcast. Along with me here today, I have my partner, best friend, and co-founder of Rosefellow, Sam Tsoumas. And to my right, a special guest, one that's been part of the Rosefellow initiative since day one, David Bell. David, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Nearly day one, but pretty early on.
Actually, yeah, you're right. David, before getting into the story of David and Oakbank, maybe tell us a bit about how you came across
Well, I
Rosefellow.
actually want to understand what day one means now. So when we first met, how long did you guys plan to start Rosefellow before you launched it?
It was...
I actually never asked that question.
Yeah. Frankly, we were always
Because it was
talking...
December 2019
Yeah.
is when you launched?
Yep.
And before then, how long would it have taken?
I think it started probably around end of August. We started putting it all together. I think from memory, we had one of our first meetings, about talking about partnership agreements and legal documents and capital contributions that we had to make, probably early September.
Okay.
So somewhere in around there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then we got a cold call.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about that, David.
Yeah, so I was working in a company called Canada ICI, a national mortgage brokerage and lending firm. I was in the Winnipeg office, which is where I'm born and raised and was living. And I was planning to move to Toronto in the short order, and I was just becoming a broker, and I saw you guys post on LinkedIn that you were starting Rosefellow, and for whatever reason I gave you a cold call. I can't remember if it was Sam or Mike who ended up answering the phone. It was Sam. I think Mike was in the background there, and I basically said, look, I'm a commercial mortgage lender. We're a national firm. And one of you two was like, we need one of those. Like, come meet us right away. So I flew to Montreal from Winnipeg. We had dinner, and yeah, we've done a lot of stuff since then.
Because at the onset, a lot of what we did was ourselves. I mean, when it came to lending, we would visit the banks. We would kind of introduce it. We didn't have proper guidance.
Also, I do remember we had met with some other groups, and interestingly enough, other brokers.
Yeah.
And I remember not many actually even wanted to talk to us.
Right.
So I remember when you cold called us, and to me, you are one of the successful stories of cold calling.
Yeah.
Why all it takes is one chance, one lucky break to connect with a client, and cold calling does work, and you're a testament to that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
What's impressive of that call is that you did what you said. You said, I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to come meet with you guys. It wasn't about a Teams. It wasn't about a Zoom.
No.
You did it the old-fashioned way, the good way.
Yeah.
You got on a plane. You came to Montreal and met with us and sold us on why we should be dealing with you.
Yeah, and I think like back to the cold call point, which you said, Sam, is people are just scared to talk to other people, right? In anything you do business, it's a relationship business, specifically real estate. And the only way that you're going to meet people is if you introduce yourself, right? And I think a lot of people think that, I was, becoming a broker at the time. I was junior in my career. Calling you two as two big veterans of Montreal, a lot of people probably would have said, hey, I don't deserve to be calling them, or I don't deserve to be reaching out, and therefore I shouldn't. And yeah, I guess I just didn't have that imposter syndrome. You just got to do it.
So tell us a little about yourself.
So today, I'm the co-founder and managing partner at Oakbank Capital Group. We're a real estate capital advisory firm based in Toronto, and we do commercial mortgage lending and brokerage nationwide. Started my career in real estate in 2019 at a company called Canada ICI Capital. I worked there as an analyst for a great broker in Winnipeg. Moved to Toronto in 2020. Started working with you guys at that existing firm, and about 2022, I left that firm to start my own company, Oakbank Capital.
So now going back to that story, tell us what was your first impression when you came to Montreal? You met with Sam and I.
I mean, I tell every lender or anyone in Toronto that, we meet and talk about Rosefellow, you guys are just the most authentically you people of all time, right? I'm the guy sitting here in a suit and tie, pretending to be someone where, you have tattoos and Amiri shirts and, it's just the total antithesis of everything you think a big time real estate developer sitting in a suit behind a desk would be. But I think that is the huge reason you guys were successful. I say to people all the time that if you guys wore suits and ties, I don't even think you would be where you are today, just because people look at you and they go, this is just so different. And then when they meet you, it's just great people that they get to work with, which I think is so important.
How would you say that initial outreach shaped the way you do business? Have you always been doing this type of cold call, get on a plane, and go see someone,
Yeah,
or that our kind of experience change the way you look at approaching new business?
Yeah, I always think that in business you always have to invest in yourself, right? And so whether that's buying that plane ticket or spending that money on dinner or going out to see someone, I think that that's just super important. And like I said in the beginning of the podcast, anything you want in life, someone else has.
Yeah.
And you need to get close to them, right? And that's 101.
What's great is that I think that's a learning or a lesson to everyone getting into business, no matter what business you're in. Don't be scared.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone, attack. You could get let down 30 times, but it takes that one call, like you mentioned earlier.
So, question for you. So, you met Mike and I.
Yeah.
How did us being partners shape your founding of Oakbank? Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, you have a partner.
Yeah.
Were you friends before? Was there anything that led you to believe that a partnership would be the right way? Anything that you saw in us?
Yeah, I definitely saw the way that you two work together, and that's obviously a dream scenario. You guys have total opposite skill sets, which works very well. And me and my partner Jonah, quite opposite in the same way as well. So when Jonah and I were working at Canada ICI together, he's from Winnipeg, which I am too, but we weren't really friends there. We just knew who we were. And when I was a broker in Toronto at ICI, I was focused on industrial and apartment buildings, and Jonah was focused on land and construction, specifically in the condo business at that time. And so although we were two brokers, I guess people would think that we'd be competing. I did my apartments and industrial, he did his condo, and so we never really crossed over with the same clients.
You complemented each other.
Yeah, and so we became really good friends. And as we became really good friends working at that company, some clients and some friendships and relationships crossed over. And it was the summer of 2021, or I can't remember, 21. And a couple of clients just said, hey, if you wanted to go out on your own, we would support you in doing that. And then Joan and I went for dinner one night and said, I think would be a great way to do it together. And you were foundational in that as well, Sam and Mike.
That's amazing. So you've arranged, a little over $5 billion in real estate capital.
Yeah.
What's the key to your success today? Is it the drive? What is it that makes you stand out from everybody else?
I think that the key to our success for Joan and Aaron and I at Oakbank is it's going to sound super basic, but it's all the little things. It's showing up every day, going to the office 5 days a week, wearing a suit and tie. If you get a phone call that day, return the phone call that day. These are very basic things that when you start working in Bay Street or Toronto or in the real estate market, people don't return phone calls every day. People don't go to the office every day. And it's those little basic things where that if you do them enough over time, your relationship, your business, your capital, everything compounds. And so we just do the right thing kind of every day and try to do that.
So talk to us a little bit about your viewpoint of the Montreal market versus the Ontario-Toronto market.
So I would say that Montreal is a much more interesting market than Toronto at the moment. Reason being is building here still makes sense, although it's a little bit difficult across the board right now due to interest rates. The rents you're getting in Montreal are getting close to Toronto in certain assets, and the build cost and the land cost is still significantly lower. So I think that you have a bunch of Toronto and capital from Western Canada looking at Montreal right now as an interesting market to place. Like there was a big apartment trade that a Toronto group bought here last week. Yeah, it's starting to get very interesting in Montreal. It has been for a bunch of years now.
So give us your prediction on interest rates 12 months from now.
So I think the Bank of Canada rate is going to continue to move down. I'm just starting to get concerned that the bond yields are going to continue to go up. I always preface anything when I talk about bond yields or interest rates is that I wouldn't be a mortgage broker if I knew where interest rates were going to go. But the macro and the economics that I read today, I think the bond yields are going to continue to go up. So long-term financing is going to get a little bit more expensive, but short-term will continue to come down.
So here's a question for you. I always say that there's a flavor of the day. Yeah. For the past couple of years, it's been industrial. Multi-res always seems to be coming and going. What do you see the next flavor of the day in the real estate market being?
I think the flavor of the day with interest rates being a little bit higher is going to continue to be purpose-built rental on the residential side. Although Canada is cutting back the immigration a bit, we still do not have the homes to house all of the people and the growth plans that Canada has as a country. And with interest rates being more elevated than they are, people can't afford to buy homes. So I really believe that Canada is going to turn into a renter nation. Whether you think that's right or wrong, that's for a conversation
It's
for
an
another
opinion,
time.
and you're allowed to have, for sure.
But there's definitely an opportunity to build more purpose-built rental.
I'm always interested. I see, the underwriting for purpose-built rental apartments, and the average rents seem to need to be astronomical to make the numbers work.
Yes.
Where are you seeing them underwritten versus the reality, and what do you see changing going forward?
So in Toronto, it's hard to say that because everything has been condo for the past 15 years. Purpose-built rental in Toronto and the GTA has just started, call it 3-4 years ago. So we haven't really even seen the buildings and the rents come online if they're going to meet pro forma. Toronto, they're talking rents like $5-6 a foot now. I mean, Montreal in a downtown building, you're what, Sam?
I've heard of rents at $4 a foot.
Right.
But,
And I think that's at the high end. Yeah, exactly.
Not the suburbs.
Right. And the building you guys did on a Neon were 2.25.
Again, we built a building with 270 large units. Obviously, the next time around, we will make them a little more size efficient.
Yeah.
And I think by doing so, we will be able to achieve the rental rates that are a little more.
But even at that, I don't see Montreal hitting Toronto levels for
of course.
many years.
Yeah. Okay, if we were to switch over, we've did many deals together.
Yeah.
What is one of those deals that stand out to you? What's one where you said, "Wow, that was a great one. That was a home run."
I mean, 2800 Avenue Andre, obviously.
Tell us about that one.
Yeah, I mean, when we did Andre, that was 2021.
So when we say Andre, for those listening, it's 2800 Andre Street in Dorval, which is the West Island of Montreal.
It was the middle of COVID. You guys have bought an amazing piece of land next to the airport.
The trucking
terminal.
Trucking terminal.
That had,
And at the time, you didn't really know the power of a trucking terminal when you bought it, because when you bought it, you're like, look, we're going to tear this down. We're going to build a huge... And you were talking about buying out the leases at that time.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to get started right to development, right?
Exactly.
And I believe that the clear height on that building, you could have gone as really as high as anywhere in...
103 feet.
Right.
We had great zoning to do what we do, which is industrial spec.
Right. So you bought this piece of land that had this trucking terminal on it. None of us really knew at the time because COVID was just starting, and that whole industrial and e-commerce craze we were in like inning one or period one. And so the land had some income on it, so we were able to leverage it up quite high with an acquisition loan. And then when you guys were working and going out to buy out that lease, they were like, look, this is critical infrastructure to our business. What do you want? And you guys struck a deal of a lifetime with the existing tenant and increased their rent 5-fold, 6-fold? I can't remember.
I still remember when we purchased that facility, there were trailer parking storages that were being rented at about $178 a month.
Yeah.
And by the time we actually closed on the property, there were several that had just month-to-month leases. We terminated all of those, and we started renting them on fixed term for the duration of our short-term leases. And I remember we went from like $170, $180 a month to $450, $500, and $600 a month instantaneously. It was a learning curve for us.
Yeah, and then I mean, we put that acquisition loan in place, and then less than 2 years later, you guys turned around and sold that asset to Brookfield as an income play, not as a land development site. And like looking back in the middle of COVID when that prime was 245, you could get 85% loan to purchase price. It was totally different times. That's got to be the home run of the home run.
Well, again, it's not our core business. We don't flip properties, but obviously we do have investors that we look out for, and it's all about giving them the best return possible. And that was great for Rosefellow.
Notwithstanding the return, it still hurts that we had to.
Right.
Not that we had to. It was the right financial move for our partners, investors, to sell that facility. I think Brookfield did very well with the facility.
Yeah.
And I do still believe it is probably one of the greatest sites in our city for future development.
And I think my other favorite one had to have been Kirkland, right? And Kirkland's still finishing up.
Yep.
Kirkland was one where we had the opportunity, me and my partners to have invest a tiny little bit into that building. It was a great land buy. The design of that property is so beautiful. And then I think the coolest part about it was when the bank we had arranged to do the financing on that asset, the account manager actually had lived behind the building.
It's amazing.
Right?
I remember that.
And the passion that she had in order to make sure that you guys were going to be a good steward of the neighborhood and building that asset. Everyone was excited about doing that deal, which I thought was really cool.
I remember we had that breakfast meeting, and she told us she lived right behind.
Yeah.
And what I liked about that too is that this was a a new relationship with a bank that we had never worked with, a bank that always seemed to be quite difficult to work with, generally on the industrial spec, and on this one, it's like that's where we started that relationship.
And that's been a great relationship. Now we've done a couple deals. Yeah.
How would you say our visions align, David, when it comes to industrial real estate development?
Me on the financing side, or getting to invest in buildings. What I think makes you guys successful, there's obviously a ton of characteristics, but the other one is how large you think, right? You'll read motivational quotes or people about thinking big. You guys really do that, right? The first deal was $10 million land buy, then it was $30 million, then it was $50 million, and we've talked about $250 million land purchases, right? Times I've screamed at Sam on the phone being like, are you insane, right? Like this is too much, right? And
I've screamed back.
You screamed back way more than I screamed at you. What I think that you guys do really well that other clients don't or other developers don't is you put together a really amazing team of people on a transaction, right? Real estate's a people business. You have a mortgage guy, a leasing guy, your own team, internal development, construction. You hire the best people and you let them do their job. You're not micromanaging every single piece of the process. And a lot of other developers do that. And I think that's a huge thing that you guys do is put together the team, right? And coach them to be successful. Don't try to get out on the ice on the power play and, try to put one in yourself.
Is that something you do internally within your own company?
100%.
You built Oakbank from nothing with Jonah. You have a team of how many now?
We have about 15 people.
You have 15 people.
Congratulations.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you give them that same authority or do you give them that same leeway to do what they need to do?
Yeah, you have to give someone enough rope and you have to let them go do it. Obviously, if there's a mistake and things happen, you have to pull that back, but you have to empower people to be successful, right? If you're always trying to limit someone or micromanage, or you need to be in every single meeting with one of your VPs, it's an inefficient use of my time, and it's also not going to let them be able to blossom, right? We've talked about this before. You have to let people fail a little bit, learn, pick yourself up, and move on. Like you have to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to change a little bit the tone here. A lot of our viewers are probably not that savvy in lending, financial terms. You spoke about bond rates, interest rates, yields. In 1 minute or less, teach our audience what they should be looking for. What are the words that they should be listening to? What is important for them to pick up on what you say for them to be able to go and finance their properties?
Sure. So I guess the basic education, the 101 would mean, there's the Bank of Canada rate, which is correlated to the prime rate. And the prime rate is used in lending for land acquisitions, bridge loans, floating rate options. It's really, if you're going to buy a piece of land to build, you need a land loan. It's based off of the prime rate. If you're going to buy something with a bridge loan in place where you're going to do some improvements and then take it out, it's all based off of the prime rate. And then when I talk about bond yields, that's all what's based off of for fixed long-term financing, right? So you buy a piece of land, you build a building with a construction loan. It's all floating rate debt most of the time, I'm generalizing. And then once that asset's completed and stabilized, you take it out with fixed term financing, which is all done off bond yields. So it's prime rate and bond yields are really the only two things for people out there that are interested in learning about that is what you would need to know and think. If it's long term, it's bond yields. If it's short term, it's done off the prime rate.
So generally, investors, buyers are looking at the bonds.
Yes, correct. Right? Everyone is looking at what kind of long-term financing, what's the cost of the long-term financing, and then there's supposed to be a spread above that, which is your cap rate, and that's really real estate and how it's done.
What would you say to someone coming out of school or someone who wants to change their career and go into a field that you're in? What suggestion can you give him?
I think the mortgage business is a really good place for people to start their career if they want to become a developer or if they want to be a mortgage professional for a long time. I think it's interesting because you get to look at a lot of transactions, you get to look at a lot of different borrower structures and groups, and it just allows you to underwrite very quickly. If you're doing investment sales, you're looking at a property that, is a development site or is a completed asset, and you're going out to sell it. When you're on the mortgage side, you get to work with that client in a lot of cases through the land loan and the construction loan and the term loan, and you kind of see how all of those projects move across. So if you're looking to get into the real estate business, the mortgage side's a wonderful way to start. And then if you do a couple of years in that and you want to go on the development side or investment sales, it's really just it's a good foundational piece in real estate to start in the mortgage business.
Mike and I often talk about mentors. We've had mentors, mentoring. Have you had a mentor? And tell us a little bit about him or her.
Yeah, so I have a couple different mentors, but in real estate specifically, when I was in my early 20s, living in Winnipeg, I wanted to get into real estate, and I bought a strip mall, and I had no idea what I was doing.
How old were you? Because you're young. You're 28. You're 29.
Yeah, I would have been 20 or 19, and I bought a strip mall because I went into my eyeglass guy to get glasses, and I looked around. I go, this building's a piece of shit, but it's an amazing location, right? And I wanted to get into real estate, so I asked the optometrist. I go, can I have the name and number for the owner of this building? So I called her and I asked her if she was interested in selling, and she's like, yeah, I'd be interested in speaking. Drove to her house immediately and, started building a relationship.
Once again, you got in your car
right.
and you went
of course,
face to face.
You do things quickly, right? Have a sense of urgency. And so I got this building under contract. I had no idea. I didn't know what a cap rate was, dollar per square foot, net rent, gross rent. I knew nothing. And so I put this building under contract, used every dollar I had to basically pay the deposit, right, with the lawyer, and started doing DD. And literally everything on that building that could have went wrong, right? Phase 1 failed. Had to do a phase 2. I was drilling boreholes. I was trying to raise equity with no money. And I had no idea what I was doing. And there was this one group that I met in the beginning when I was trying to raise money to buy this asset that said no to me. And then a week before closing, I had heard from someone that they had been asking some questions about how I was doing in my DD period. And I was like 3 days before waiving. And I called these guys. I said, look, I got nothing. Like, I can't waive, right? If you want this asset, this is the time. And they said, look, we actually do want it. We've actually talked to some people about arranging financing for it ourselves. And they said, look, we're going to give you a small little acquisition fee. We want you to be involved in the project, but we're going to put the equity up and we're going to do this development together. And they bailed me out, and it's some of my best friends today. They helped me get into the mortgage business.
And you were 19, 20?
Yeah,
what
correct.
were you doing at 19 years
No kidding.
old?
But it goes to show again, you know what? Don't overthink things.
Yeah.
You saw something, you liked it, you went after it.
Yeah.
We do a lot of that.
Yep.
People think we're crazy. Yeah, and like I always say, you're crazy till you're considered a genius.
Correct.
So
And there's absolutely no shame in saying, I don't have anything. I don't know what I'm doing. Help me out.
Correct.
And that's important.
it's funny because
You got to be passionate, and you have to have that, genuine spirit as a person, and that's what makes people want to help you, right? Everyone wants to be around people who are doing things and are trying hard and moving forward. And yeah, just go for it.
it's a question Sam and I get asked all the time by younger people who are coming out of school or who are contemplating getting into real estate. Like, I want to do a project, but I don't have $100 million. I don't have $20 million. You didn't have $10 million for that project. You put it under contract and you went out hustling and
I can say confidently, when you guys started, you didn't have $100 million either,
Absolutely.
right? And the first project that you did was $110 million.
Yep. I always say scale is there just to make people afraid for nothing.
Correct.
There's really no difference in any of the levels of development, whether
Exactly.
it's 30 million, 40 million, 100 million. It is the same process.
It's harder to
Generally
do a
the
$10
same
million
levels.
deal than
Yeah.
it is to do a 50.
Absolutely. People are a lot more hesitant with their money
Yes.
at 10 million.
Correct.
It's been a couple years. You built your own company with your partner Jonah. You have multiple employees now.
Yeah.
What's next for Oakbank? What's the next phase? What's the next chapter?
So I think expanding to other markets will be the next chapter in our business. But at the end of the day,
Within Canada? Sorry to cut you
within
off.
Canada, yeah. But at the end of the day, I'm in a brokerage business, but me, most importantly, I'm a broker, right? So first things first, I want to make sure that I'm delivering the results for myself and Jonah as for our clients before I'm getting too far ahead of myself and working on other markets. I still have a long runway of being a great mortgage broker, I think, and I want to continue to work on that while we continue to expand the business. So in Toronto, we've gotten to a reasonable size scale. This year in 2024, we'll just do north of $2 billion in loans this year. which is a really good volume. And next year we want to grow that, right? Just in that market itself. So
I remember that was one promise you gave to Sam and I when you came in to meet us that first time. You said, no matter how big you get, no matter how big I get, I will always make you feel like you're my only client.
right.
And 5 years into business, we use you on pretty much almost every file we work on. And I know Sam does a lot more direct work with you, but I do sense that that's exactly the way you treat us. You know, if we have a call, if we have a comment, even when we don't call, you're calling us, giving us information, heads up, weekends, nights. It's really that personal touch that you've delivered to us. That's my biggest takeaway. There's a lot of, we've gotten calls from many of your competitors looking to gain our business, and we're loyal to you. We're always loyal.
Loyalty.
Yeah.
Loyalty is good, and we always said the same. We'll be as good to you as you are to us, and we'll always be faithful. Now, what you've promised us day one, you've kept delivering day in, day out.
I appreciate that.
You own a business today. There's a lot more pressure on your shoulders. You have a big team that you can delegate our account to, and you don't.
Yeah.
You're here in Montreal. You flew down. We asked you to come and do this podcast. You're in our offices. For me, that can't be replaced.
No, and I mean, we have a very unique relationship. I definitely don't have this relationship that I do with all of my clients. With others, yes. I think the most beautiful thing you can have in business is when you get to work with your friends, or you get to start as business people and become friends along the way. That makes things a lot of fun. And it also just brings a certain extra level of care and attention to the business when you have that deep relationship, which we do, which has been great.
And I think that comes from as well, and Sam, you can speak to this, your honesty. Markets change, things happen. You've never shied away or hidden away behind a problem.
Yeah.
You've caused it, guys. We got a situation.
Yeah.
I'm flying in. We got to find a solution.
Yeah. Sam and I have had a couple of those.
We've had a few of those. Sometimes it hasn't gone so well.
No.
But it actually is both ways.
Correct.
We've also been very honest when things don't go
Yeah.
our way. And,
Yes.
like any development, nothing is ever perfect. And we've always been transparent with
Yeah.
you and you with us. And I think it's allowed us to find solutions, especially when the time started changing. I remember the lenders started becoming a little
More pensive.
more pensive. Some lenders were changing terms at the last second, which I did not have fun with. But it allowed us, to keep that relationship good and basically find a solution to any problem we had.
100%.
As we get towards the end of this podcast, let me ask you, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten in business?
I think it would just be show up, honestly. I know it sounds simple. Not many people show up every day to work like you guys, right? It's so simple. You show up Monday through Friday. Joan and I talk about this. Post-COVID has been the easiest time to be successful ever.
Explain that to us.
Right? After COVID, everyone has gotten so lazy. The suit and ties have fallen off. They come to work, a couple days a week. They're at the cottage the other couple days. I mean, you guys never wore the suit and tie, so that never mattered. But they didn't come into the office. When we started Oakbank, it's still COVID going on. Our whole team's in 5 days a week. Everyone's dressed to the nines. We're working. We're building. Even us just doing that, which isn't, let's take everything else out. Just going to work 5 days a week. You're already way ahead of your competition. It's so crazy now, right? People are so lazy. And so showing up and being consistent already sets you ahead of 99% of your competitors. And then being super talented, having great relationships, working hard. Those are all table stakes and things that come along with it. But today, post-COVID, showing up is beating 99% of the other people that you're competing against.
That's a great piece of advice.
Pre-COVID, it wasn't like that, right? Everyone was going to work, right? It was a lot harder then.
What is one good piece of advice you'd give to your 18-year-old self, if you could?
I think if you're starting in real estate, it's great to go work at a firm or a brokerage and really get the foundational skills. You two have done that in your careers growing up. Learning the modeling, getting to see a bunch of other transactions, learning how the business works on other people's deals is a great way to get started in the business before you can go out on your own and start doing it.
I like that. Actually, it's an interesting story. There's a lot of people we've met in real estate who have kids who are getting through school, and a lot of these owners of businesses have not brought their kids into their own company.
Right. Go somewhere else.
They've exactly that. Go somewhere else, get some experience, 3-4 years, and then I may give you an opportunity to work in my company.
Right.
And Sam and I have the same philosophy. It's no one's going to have a silver spoon. You're going to have to earn your stripes. You're going to have to go out and get experience, and then you'll get a chance to start. And when you start, you're starting at ground zero and working your way up.
Yeah.
So, David, any final words?
That's all I got. Thank you for having me, gentlemen. This has been fantastic.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, David. Thank you, Sam, for being part of our Rosefellow podcast. Go ahead.
David, if I have to say, we've been working together almost 5 years. Yeah. I've always said it to everybody who's asked me about you. You're an impressive young man.
Thank you.
You speak much wiser than your age actually is. So congratulations on Oakbank's success. And thank you for being such a great part of Rosefellow.
Well, thank you for letting me be, and thanks for being friends. And we'll continue. The show goes on.
Thank you all for listening in to Rosefellow's podcast. And don't forget to follow us on social media as well. Thank you.